So, you're thinking about buying property in Madeira. Today, I've got 10 mistakes you want to avoid when buying property in Madeira. And just as it happens, there are 10 spaces inside this incredible luxury villa that I want to show you. So let's go inside and get started. Oh, and by the way, if you stick till the end of the video, I'll tell you how you can get your hands on $20,000 through this property. Let's go. All right, first up, in the kitchen, the stunning kitchen, is mistake number one, believing that the golden visa for property still exists. Because there are many websites and ads and companies with messaging on there making you believe that the golden visa still exists. But it ended in 2023, including in Madeira. But that's not a problem because there are other ways to get your visa to live in Madeira. So first of all, you have the D7 visa. And that's perfect for people who are retirees or have passive income. So perfect for rental income, pension, or things like dividends. Secondly, you have the D8 visa, the digital nomad visa. And the only thing you have to do there is prove you have a certain level of income to live in Portugal. And then you have the Schengen route. Because if you don't plan to spend more than 90 days in 180 days, you don't even really need a visa. You just enter by Schengen rules. And therefore, if you're the type of person who has multiple houses or likes to move around, then Schengen is probably the easiest route for you. And then there is the golden visa. The golden visa still does exist, but it's for things like capital investment, like venture capital funds, investing in job creation, and also cultural assets within Portugal. The only thing it doesn't include is personal property, but it still does exist. So depending on what you want to do, it may still be valid for you. But the mistake here is, don't just assume that you buy a property and then you get the golden visa like you used to do. Not anymore. Okay, now at the dining room table with incredible views over the ocean. Every wall in here is made of glass, so light pours in and you have views of the coastline. Incredible. But mistake number two is underestimating the bureaucracy and delays that can be caused by that. So as with many Southern European countries, things can be slow in the local municipal offices. A lot of things are still paper-based. There are a lot of holidays, public holidays that close those offices. Things take time, things need to go through loops. And if you're in a rush or you're trying to do things fast, this can be quite frustrating. So you need to understand that things might not move as fast as in the country that you're from. It is different here. But it's probably worthwhile in the end, right? But you should just be aware of it and know how to negotiate through it. The other side to that is if you're buying and bringing stuff here, logistically things can take longer. Things, it has to come by ship, it has to come by cargo ship, and then it has to be brought in. So these are just things and delays that you need to think about, especially when buying to build or buying and developing. Obviously, if you're buying a property which is fully done, you don't have a lot of those issues in terms of logistics. You just have the paperwork issues. So what's the recommendation? How do you avoid delays at every step of the way and know how to negotiate the system? Well, it seems obvious, but hire a local lawyer, a good local lawyer who's well versed in how this works. They'll have done it time and time and time again. They'll know the calendar, they'll know the right forms, the right people, and essentially get you through those bottlenecks and through those delays. It may still be a little painful, but at least you've got the best chance to get through smoothly when you hire someone local and someone that's on your side. Okay, into the living space. And to be honest, the whole thing is a living space because it's open plan, but very well designed that they feel slightly different in terms of how you use that space. Of course, the kitchen, the dining room, the living area. Anyway, mistake number three is not thinking about the climates and the microclimate in Madeira. If you're buying in Funchal, I think you're pretty set. The climate is fairly stable all year round. However, the island on a whole has a lot of different microclimates, and of course that changes season by season by season. The thing is, odds are you're going to get great weather when you come here. And you could go on a tour around the north of the island, you visit a town like São Vicente or Boaventura, and you have the most wonderful experience. You see it in glorious sunshine, and you're like, this is where I need to buy. The problem is, you've seen it at its best. And there could be days, especially on the north of the island, where it's windy, where it's foggy, where it's rainy, or you're just in the cloud. That's not a bad thing per se. Some people quite like that. I love that. and it does feel a lot more rustic and rugged and authentic over there. But you need to know what you're getting into. You can't just see it at its best. So I recommend, if you are thinking about buying, do a little research. Come here a few times at different times. Go and see it at different times. See if you really like the area. Then again, if you're on the south coast, specifically Funchal, but to be honest, anywhere along the south coast, you're probably much better there. Safer bet. And the other thing to say is that goes for elevation as well, because obviously the higher you get, the weather changes. The closer to the coast, or in the banana belt that we call it, where bananas grow, the weather's fairly warm, it's fairly stable. But as you go higher up, things change. So you might have this wonderful mountain villa that you find, but then half the time you're living in a cloud. Don't make that mistake. If that was the living area, I would call this the lounge area, the entertainment area. Big sofa, big TV, music system, pure entertainment and relaxation. Now we're on to mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 is a big one for Madeira, and I hear a lot of stories about this one, so please, please, please be careful with it. And it's not checking the property's legal title properly. Now, on a new build, it's probably fine, but obviously you still want to check it. But on these older buildings that you see, it can be an absolute maze and complexity nightmare. And a few things to watch out for. Firstly, the legal title. Here, properties could have been built by the great-grandparents or the grandparents, and then they're passed down. Sometimes, without proper legal registration, they're just handed down to the family. And for example, because a lot of people emigrated to Venezuela or elsewhere in the world, the people who it's been handed down to might have left. Now, you buy the property, think it's registered to you, and suddenly they appear and say, hang about, show all the documentation, and then you have to fight them in the court and spend more money. This happens a lot, and you definitely don't want to be caught out by that. The other piece on that is unregistered modifications. So the property was registered in a specific way, for example, with no pool. Then the property developer has come in, built a pool additionally onto the building, and didn't have permission for it. Tried to sell it to you, perhaps even sold it. You've put down your deposit, you've paid your money, you've moved in, and then someone complains or an inspection happens, and they find out that you have a pool which you've not registered. You either have to pay or you have to remove it. Well, you're probably going to end up paying, but again, you just don't want these additional headaches. And similar to that, another thing is just building regulations. For example, you can't build, now I don't know the technicalities of this, I'm saying what I think it is. You can't build within 3 meters of a road, and I think it changes, it might be 3 to 5 meters depending on where in the island you are, but let's take it as 3 meters. So if you try to build a wall around your property and it's too close to the road, or you're building a garage, for example, I know of this as an example. Someone's tried to build a garage for their property and it's been closer than 3 meters to the road and they've had to stop construction. And you will not get permission for this. You can't pay your way out of that. You just have to stop. So if that's happened or happening, you need to be careful. So what's the solution to this? Well, yes, a local lawyer, but you want an independent lawyer. You don't want a lawyer who's been recommended to you by the seller party, which could happen, and you think, oh, well, they're kind, they're offering it. They're always going to be on their side. So you want someone who's going to be on your side, who's competent and knows what they're doing. And in terms of registrations and legalities, there's 2 things you can check. I want to make sure I get the pronunciation correct. So off the phone, the caderneta predial and the certidão de registro predial, something like that. But you can check those for all of the registrations on outbuildings and plannings and things like that. But if you get the lawyer, they're going to be doing it. Just make sure it's checked. These mistakes happen so much on this island, and especially with the boom and the influx in the housing market, the influx of tourists and expats trying to buy, and the boom in the property market, people are trying to take advantage of this. So do not fall foul. And mistake number 5 is assuming that alojamento licenses come automatically. This is the license you need to legally rent short-term properties on booking.com or on Airbnb or locally. Now, actually a lot of regions in Portugal, because of the amount of them and the impact they're having on areas, they're actually suspending these. In Madeira, I believe you can still get them, but that's definitely something to check. But the rules are changing. It's becoming more difficult to get them, and there are taxes associated with it, of course. The impact of this is great, as in vast, on the local community. Property prices and rental prices are rising. Of course, that is a benefit if you're buying, but you want to make sure you're doing it properly and you want to make sure you get the license. Of course, the solution to this is think about that before you buy and when you're buying, before you put the final money down. If you're buying to let or you're buying to, at times, rent it out, let's say you're here for a few months a year and you want to rent it out the rest, just line it up first, make sure you can do it. Of course it's possible. It's a booming industry right now in the island. Just line it up first and make sure you can do what you want to do. Into the master bedroom of this property, incredible master bedroom, and one of the most comfy beds I've stayed in ever, actually. I stayed here last night and it was the most comfy bed and great sleep. Lots of space, lots of light, amazing balcony and views. However, mistake number 6, and I'm using my phone because I want to get the facts right on this one, but mistake number 6 is forgetting about the extra taxes and extra costs when you're buying a property. This goes for any property, of course, but when you're buying in a foreign country, sometimes there may be things that you don't know about or things that you skip over without realizing, and those costs come later. So there's a few. There's IMT, property transfer tax, of course. The rates vary depending on price. I'm just gonna make sure I get this right for you as I say. But the rates vary depending on price, property type, and whether it's a second home. I mean, that's fairly standard, that is obvious. High value properties obviously trigger higher tax, 6 to 8%. There's stamp duty, but actually stamp duty here is only 0.8%, so it's not actually that bad if you think about other places like the UK. The other one is if you're buying an apartment or a condo, the maintenance fees or the ongoing costs of that can be anywhere from 50 euros a month to 400 euros a month, who knows? If you're buying an apartment, the service charge that comes with that to maintain the common areas, to look after the pool, to whatever, the electricity costs, the cleaners, the windows, it all costs and you need to work that out and put that in if you are thinking about it. If you've never bought an apartment before, that's something that you need to think about. And then finally, if you're developing, if you want to bring things over, higher costs associated with shipping to Madeira. It is out the way. Look at it on the map, find out where it is, and you can see why things cost a little more, take a little longer. This is fine. You're moving to paradise, right? And I think it's an acceptable compromise. But if you are doing that, bear that in mind. I don't know. Maybe add 15 to 20% on top of the property value to cover yourself in your budgeting. And if you come in under, well, you're going to have a nice celebration party, aren't you? Okay, you are talking to me now through the master bathroom, through the shower, and as you can see, the shower, again with these views, it's views of the sea here, through the shower and into the Roman outdoor spa. Pretty cool. One of my favorite features in this entire property. But we're into mistake number 7, and that is relying solely on the seller's agent. Now, obviously, there's some obvious reasons why you don't want to do that. Conflict of interest, manipulation of prices, trying to get the best for the seller. Again, in a foreign country, in a foreign place, you're off guard. And if the seller's agent is friendly, and if the seller's agent seems like he's on your side, then maybe you'll just go down that route, and it can lead to increased costs. It can lead to people undermining you or not getting what you want, or, you know, things not being as they should be. Things you probably wouldn't stand for when you're in your home country, let's say. So again, obvious, get an agent, get a second opinion, get multiple opinions, get someone working for you essentially, including your lawyer, including the people who do the checks and all of this, get them working for you and avoid that. And actually, do not sign anything, do not put pen to paper until the professional person on your side tells you that it's a fair price and a fair offer. Why only have indoor dining when you can have outdoor dining as well? Huge concrete table, alfresco dining area, herb garden, barbecue grill at the back. Not a bad spot to spend your evening, is it? Eating dinner, drinking a glass of wine. However, built immaculately, let's say that. The quality of this build is insane. The quality of this design is top notch. I must admit that. Everything in here is immaculate. However, mistake number 8 is about the local builders. Now, there are good local builders, of course, but let's say builders here can be a challenge. Getting one who gives you a fair price as well as a foreigner is difficult. It can be really, really difficult. And there are a few, how should we say, cowboys over here, let's say. I've experienced that myself. I've seen it myself. It is a real challenge. So if you are planning to do renovations or things to the house, At any point, when you buy or in the future, you need to make sure you get the right people. And again, that isn't just someone recommending you as a friend. You need to get multiple options, try and check some of their work, see if it's aligned to what you want to do, because they may be good at what they do, but the default architecture here is very standard. Let's say that. It's a box with some rooms inside. That is what people are used to building. If you're trying to do something different, like this place, you really, really need to get the right people and the right quality and make sure you don't get ripped off. Have someone who speaks Portuguese with you, of course, try and get someone on side to help mediate that conversation. Things can get lost in translation, of course, prices. The criteria and the requirements are so important, and then you don't have any challenges later. And then obviously get that signed off with your legal professional. But finding the right builder is going to be so crucial to you, and don't just jump in to the first one you find. Don't make that mistake. Now, it wouldn't be a property like this without a pool, would it? A huge infinity pool. Very, very nice. I'm not going to get in it. I was in it yesterday. It's January right now, and it's just a little cold. Not only do you have that, you have a jacuzzi back there, and you also have a projector with an outdoor cinema on the wall back there. Anyway, mistake number 9, and that is assuming that mortgage approval will be easy. Now, it might be easy, but it might be difficult. Generally, for non-residents, banks require 30 to 40% down payment, often, which is why with this property, it's great that you have builder financing, so you don't need any of that. However, you have to bear that in mind if you're buying a property. The deposit may be higher than if you're looking in your home country. And then you have all of the rules, the regulations, the paperwork, all the complexities. It being in a foreign language, this is incredibly important, a big difference. You're going to have to, of course, make sure you get through all those stringent checks. And they will be stringent with you because you're buying abroad, of course. But it's not insurmountable. That's not to put you off. It's just to let you know you need to be prepared. And of course, as ever with these things, the rates. Keep an eye on the rates, see what's happening. But if you can predict that, let me know, because we'll be making a lot of money based on that, predicting the rates. However, the solution to this is obviously be prepared, be aware, and provide the right documentation at the right time. This is it. But don't make the mistake of just assuming you'll get it. And finally, before the bonus, mistake number 10. From the office area, the creative space of the house, I've shut the panels so you can see the panels, how they interact with the house on the inside, not just on the outside. Stunning, isn't it, with the light coming through those holes. But mistake number 10, the serious bit, in the office space, of course, is not keeping up with the regulations, because things are changing in Portugal. NHR is changing. You might have heard about the non-habitual residence tax scheme. There was version 1, let's say, that's closed down, and they're now releasing version 2. But in between that, they thought they were going to close it completely, and now they're releasing 2.0, so you need to check the regulations on that. There are still some good things in there, like no tax on crypto investments. And then also the golden visa rules that I spoke about at point number 1. That's also been changing, so you need to keep eyes on that. The AL rules, which we mentioned, again, keep an eye on that. And then all of these taxes and regulations, all of the things that you need to think about when buying a property. Things are changing in Portugal right now. And again, that's not to put you off. None of these are to put you off, because you should move here. It is the most incredible place to live. The lifestyle is amazing. The island is amazing. It's safe, it's friendly, it's great investment. But you need to be careful of these things. There's a reason why everyone's moving here and everyone wants to live here. Anyway, let me tell you about the bonus. If you hadn't guessed by now, this incredible luxury villa is indeed for sale. I've had the pleasure of spending the last few nights here, and it is as amazing as it looks. Honestly, it's one of the best places that I've been in. I would love to have it as my house, sadly a little bit outside of my budget. However, if you know someone and can refer someone who ends up buying this property, and they mention this channel name, JoeyP, when they're engaging on this property, you will get a $20,000 referral bonus. Now, obviously, if you buy this property, having seen this video, you will get that bonus or that cashback if you mention this channel name, of course. There's builder financing available, so you don't need to go through the bank. You can have flexible payment options. You can pay in crypto. If you'd like to find out more information, there's a technical video in the description, or you can click this QR code for more information. I have another video coming up of my stay in here and living in this place, checking out the local area and the local community, so you can watch that too. But like I said, if you buy this property or you refer someone who does, there's a $20,000 cash bonus for you. So that's it, guys. If you want to check out more about this property, you can find the video here, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.